Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell us who you're with and what your title is.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. It's really great to be here. So I'm Ginny of Ginnys Gin, and we launched this a few years ago. I'm the co-founder along with my husband and two of our dear friends who are also great gin lovers, Jeff and Amy Close. And so there's four of us. And so we launched, it was sort of a twinkle in the eye, 1996, but we've kind of been on the road with this now for 3 years.
Okay.
Yep.
That's exciting.
Yes, it is.
That's fun. Where did the twinkle come from? Where was that inspiration?
I know. So it's kind of an interesting story because it started out with my husband who had been working in the wine business for about 30 years, and he started making noises about quitting his job. And it made me very nervous. You know, we've got two teenage boys to feed and educate. And so I was sitting on the soccer sidelines at Santa Rosa United, and I was watching our youngest son play soccer. And I was telling the crowd, anybody that would listen, that I was looking for a job. So lo and behold, this friend of mine, girlfriend, she was like, Ginny, you're British, you've been drinking gin for decades. You have to meet these winemaker friends of mine who are distilling this amazing gin. They're distilling it from grape and grain, and it's in Sonoma County. So I was very intrigued, obviously. And so I met with the first winemaker, and then I met the next winemaker. And one of the winemakers is very high profile. It was kind of a match made in heaven, I have to say, because nice. I love gin. You know, I've been drinking it for so long, and this was such a great gin. So they take me on as a brand ambassador. I have a great time with it. The gin is very well received. And after a while, you know, I'd walk into a bar or restaurant and they're like, oh, you're Ginny with the gin. And they would remember that, I was selling gin. So about 9 months go by, and I get the fateful phone call between Christmas and New Year, I think it was. And it was basically to say, you're doing a great job, Ginny, thank you so much, but we can't really afford to keep putting money into this venture. You know, with success, we have to pile more money back in. And one of the winemakers had moved to Hawaii and was getting into coffee, and a couple of them were retiring, so it didn't really make sense for them. Mm-hmm. They said, if you can find somebody to buy the company, we'll give you a commission. So of course the wheels start.
Then.
I know, right? So I remember going to bed that night, and you know, I was really disappointed that I wasn't going to get a paycheck, you know, because that was nice. But I think more importantly, I really didn't want to give up on the gin because it was a great gin. So, you know, many sleepless nights and many spreadsheets later, I go to my teenage boys and I ask them to help me put together a PowerPoint presentation. You know, they're digital natives. I'm definitely not, although I've really come a long way. So they taught me enough to be dangerous, and I pitched the idea to my husband and potential investors, these friends. And the friends, Jeff and Amy, said, we're in, let's do it. But you need skin in the game. You've got to, you know, invest your own money. My husband said, hell no, we're not getting in the booze business. You know, I mean, he already understood the struggles of small, you know, wineries, the distribution and what have you. So he was just not game. So I went to bed that night, you know, disappointed.
How do I convince him?
Yes. So a few days later, I was having coffee in Santa Rosa at Acre Coffee, and I was telling a different girlfriend, the story, crying into my coffee. And she said, Ginny, show me the presentation. And I had it on my laptop. I didn't pitch her. I just showed it to her. She said, I'll lend you the money. So we were in business.
Wow. How exciting.
All the stars had to align, obviously.
Yes.
So what we did is we rebranded. Took us about 5 minutes to figure out, you know, that we were going to call it Ginnys, obviously, because kind of and so Ginnys Gin, the spirit of wine country. And on the back label, I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah, I've seen the back of your label. It's so nice. It's so beautiful.
It's a name cloud, basically, and it's all the friends and family members that help make it happen.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, you know, it does. I mean, it's a new venture. You know, I'm not a spring chicken. And at the bottom, I just say it takes a village to raise a gin. It certainly does. Mm-hmm. Double entendre, obviously. Oh, and my three sisters are on there too, because they're actually the ones that named me. So when my mother gave birth to yet another girl in her 40s. I was a bit of a mistake, to say the least. All my sisters were all flying the nest and leaving home, but she gave the job of naming me to them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's cute, I know.
And sweet. I mean, it's adorable.
And so the three sisters, the winning name was Virginia, but they've always called me Ginny, and everybody calls me as Ginny. So because some people are like, really, did you just do that because it rhymes?
Right.
Like, no, I literally, it's on my passport, it's, you know, it's on my dive card, it's I really am Virginia, but everybody calls me Ginny. Yeah. So
Fun. Oh, what a great story.
Fun.
Wow. And so
Water.
Water. So, I mean, I've had your gin a couple of times, and it has such a different taste than when I think of like a London dry gin. They're very different. And so, I mean, was that intentional? Were you trying to be, or was that kind of just like a happy accident?
Right. Well, I think, so you're talking about a winemaker recipe, and it was 7 years in the making. So when they got together, I think they wanted to produce a gin that was very approachable, but was super balanced. You know, if you're a winemaker, it's all about balance and restraint. And they, you know, I think although it's got 10 different botanicals and it's complex, everything plays nicely together.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, yes, you've got the London Dry, and then you have some other very botanical gins that are, you know, you can really tell which botanicals are in there. They really stand out, and that's on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think this lies somewhere in the middle, where it's just very easy to drink, very, very smooth. And that's the other thing.
Very smooth.
Right? People are like, I don't really like gin, but they'll try it, and maybe in a cocktail or something, like, this is great. Some people are, I wouldn't even consider drinking gin straight. And like, I just drink it over ice because it is so smooth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other part too, as winemakers, the idea with the grape spirits, it's about mouthfeel. So what the grape spirits bring is this lush, sort of rich, round mouthfeel. So it's, you know, it's interesting how what winemakers bring to the table, obviously. So
yeah, definite additional kind of science behind it, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
Looking at it from like a different lens, so to speak.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all they know. So yeah, it's been really fun to work with them. And now we're actually distilling. So to begin with, when I took over, we worked very closely with the original distiller who was in Colorado. So he came out to Sonoma County, and we're distilling at Sonoma Brothers, and Chris and Brandon, just amazing. I love them.
Yeah, they're a great team.
They're just really great to work with. So what we do you want me to tell you a little bit how we make it?
Yeah, sure. If you want to walk us through that, that'd be great.
Super. So, you know, we figured out, we did a few distillations with the original distiller just to make sure we were all on the same track and that we could duplicate the recipe, you know, for the rest of the time. So lemongrass all comes from our garden, and I cut that up on the day of, weigh out all the botanicals. And the first, it's like a 3-step process.
Mm-hmm.
So we take the juniper and the coriander, and we crack it, and we have a small mill. It's only about this big, and so takes, you know, there's small batches obviously, but it takes a while to crack it. And juniper is very resinous, you know, the essential oils, so it does get a bit bunged up, you know, periodically, so we have to scrape it and clean it and what have you. So it's a real labor of love. So those two go into almost like a tea bag. I mean, we put it in a bag, and we macerate in the grape spirits for 24 hours. And then the next day, we take all the other 8 botanicals and hang them up in the helmet of the still for gentle vapor infusion.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, and we let the botanical concentrate rest for about 3 weeks. And then we do one final distillation where we marry the grape spirits, you know, with the concentrate, with the grain. In this case, it's corn. So our neutral grain spirit is corn. So it's like a 3-step process. So we have angelica root, we have licorice root. The licorice root is brings a sort of, it's a little sweetness, sort of smooths it, rounds it out a little bit. Lemon peel obviously brings the citrus and the lemongrass.
Yeah,
So
it's nice. I really enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah, the citrus forward piece, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then orris root is used in the perfume industry. Yeah, and in fact, I think there were some distillers who were a bit nervous because Chanel bought up so much orris root. They were worried there wouldn't be enough for distilling.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that root.
Yeah, so it's actually the root of the iris. So it's the iris bulb.
Oh.
Yeah, hence the floral aspect. So that it does bring a little bit of a floral note to our gin. And then we also have grains of paradise and cube berries, and they're in the pepper family. And so they bring a little heat and spice, not too much. Everything sort of plays nicely. There's not one thing that like really jumps out at you.
Right, everything is really well balanced. I agree.
And then sagebrush. So the original distillers, winemakers, were getting their sagebrush in Aspen. And I thought, well, we have some, mountain areas closer to us, and we're big skiers. So we are getting ours from Tahoe.
Oh, cool.
So the first time we did this, I sent my husband up in the truck, and he's like, okay, you got to go higher because it's at like 6,000 feet. It's supposed to taste best at 6,000 feet. So he keeps going, and he sends me this photo, and it's a beautiful like spring day in Tahoe, and there's still a little bit of snow on the mountains, and the sky is blue, and there's all this sagebrush. So he comes back with a ton of sagebrush in the back of the truck, and we have to pick all the leaves off, and it's very resinous, so black fingers and what have you. And then we laid it out on our screen doors to dry. This is the first time that we did this, obviously. And when, in Sonoma County, it gets a little damp in the evening, so we brought it in and we put it downstairs in the area where the teenage boys hang out. And there were a couple of friends over, and they were probably playing those horrible video games or something. And so there's all this sagebrush, and it's, and the boys are like, smelling like, is that Mum's other project? They should be so lucky. So that was kind of my funny sagebrush story. Now we actually have a farmer. He's a farmer up near Reno, and so he has all this organic sagebrush on his property. And so when we need it, I meet him up. In fact, the first time I met him was up in outside of Reno at a Starbucks in the car park. And so we do this, very
exchange
in the parking lot.
And like, it's just sagebrush, no need to worry.
And then on the way home, I get into an argument or discussion with one of my teenage boys in the car, and I'm trying to listen and craft my argument, and I'm really focused on the argument and everything, and I'm coming downhill from Tahoe, and I don't know it, but finally I look in my rear view mirror, and there's a cop car.
Oh. I'm
like doing 90 miles an hour or something, worried about the conversation I'm having. So he pulls me over, and I'm thinking to myself, when I wind down the window, he's going to think that this old girl is smoking pot.
That's hilarious.
Anyway, he only wrote me up for like 80, I think it was, and he sent me on my way. So
nice. Like, I was arguing with my teenager, yell at him.
Yeah, exactly.
His fault.
Yeah. 10 different botanicals, just all playing nicely together.
Very cool. I'm not very familiar with sagebrush either, so I'll have to dig around and learn more about those too.
Yeah, cool.
Very cool. So, given the current circumstances, where can folks purchase Ginnys Gin right now?
Right. So there are quite a few places like Willoughby's in Santa Rosa, Bottle Barn, they're online as well. And so you can buy it through them. If you go to our website, there are also some places that ship as well. In fact, Gary's in Napa, I know that they're shipping as well if you live in Napa. Yes.
Nice.
I think if you go on the website where it says Find Ginnys Gin, you can just put in your zip code, and then it'll come up which is closest to you. And I would just call them up and say, hey, are you delivering? Are you open? I know Willoughby's is open. Bottle Barn's closed, but you can order online. So
yeah, I know that they've changed their shipping recently, and so I think they've opened up their spirits online, so which is great.
Yeah. So I think everybody's trying to do what they can to get booze into the hands of people that need it during shelter in place. So.
Yep. Yeah, I think there's like some crazy statistic that like alcohol sales are up 42% or something like that in grocery stores.
I know.
So I believe it.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that you really enjoy drinking gin over ice, but what is besides that, what are some of your other gin favorite based cocktails?
Right. So, I grew up drinking gin and tonic because
I did too. It was my mom and my grandmother's beverage of choice. Tanqueray and tonic with 2 limes.
There you go. So in my mother's era back in England, it was Gordon's gin, and Gordon came in a green glass bottle back then. And we had this soda siphon, which would be considered antique now, obviously. And I was allowed to, there would be little bullets of soda or tonic, what have you, and you would make that. I'd be allowed to do that, and I'd be allowed to make her gin and tonic. And she always had it with lemon. So of course I always have it with lemon now. In fact, there's a story about the label. Lisa Hobro did the label, and we had a long brief, obviously talking about the different ideas and what have you. And after that, I left her some of the gin in a decanter and a bottle of tonic and then a lemon. And I said, okay, so just ice, gin, ice, add a little bit of tonic, and then take a lemon and peel the lemon and then squeeze the lemon into the gin and tonic. And she actually incorporated into the label, which I think is very creative.
Yeah, really very nice.
So gin and tonic with lemon. If I'm in a very celebratory mood, then I really enjoy a French 75. So
those are so delicious.
And again, really easy to make. 2 of my favorite things in the same glass, gin and champagne. So,
yeah,
they
are there. I had my first French 75 just a couple years ago, actually, in Sonoma, because I had started, kind of in my younger age drinking gin, and then I got very turned off of gin, and so I stopped drinking it for many years. And a girlfriend of mine was like raving about French 75s, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll have one. And it was a very pleasant surprise, and they're really, really enjoyable. They're so refreshing.
We also have Golden State cider here in Sonoma County as well. And if I don't want to stretch to a whole bottle of, bubbly or something, then you can do a French 75, but just substitute cider for.
That's a great suggestion.
And very refreshing.
I really like that.
I put it in a tall Pilsner glass, and you can actually do honey syrup instead of the regular simple syrup, which kind of goes nicely with the cider, the apple. So.
Yeah, very nice. I like that idea. You mentioned gin and tonics. What is your go-to tonic? Because that's always a fun debate.
I know it is. And we have a funny story too about this. So we wondered what, we did a taste test. So I think there were about 6 of us maybe. And we did homemade tonic. We did Fever Tree. We did Q. We did a couple of more obscure ones as well. And then we did the Schweppes, the regular Schweppes tonic.
I know Schweppes.
Schweppes came out #1.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thing. And I think it was because it was just such a familiar, this was a few years back, I think it was a familiar taste, because
very much so.
But personally now, because, Q is great because it's actually using agave. And obviously Fever Tree, everybody loves Fever Tree as well. But if if I'm going to the supermarket and they don't have a particular tonic, if they don't have Fever Tree, then I would choose Q or vice versa, But,
very nice. I really enjoy Fever Tree's ginger beer. It's like a good spicy ginger beer. So I haven't actually tried their tonic. It's on the list. So, and I know Fever Tree has several different ones that I think are also really fun, that there's different takes on them.
Right. And that is fun. There's the elderflower and then the Mediterranean. Personally, I like to taste the gin. So I'd rather just have a straight tonic, regular tonic, because I got enough botanicals in the gin anyway. So,
right. Well, where are some, everyone is of course anxious to get back out into the world and enjoy Sonoma County. And of course, what's not to love about being here. So what are some of your favorites? Like, what are you looking forward to most?
Oh my goodness. Yes. When they shut down the parks and the beaches and everything, I was like, wow, everybody.
Yeah, that was hard.
Crazy. But Napa County, the trails are still open.
Oh.
And yes. So I have to say that I have been hiking in some really great trails, and I found some new trails as well.
Oh, nice.
I really miss swimming, and that's my sort of go-to in terms of just washing away the day if it's been one of those days.
Sure.
So that's been a little tough. So I will never, ever take for granted a swimming pool again. we go to a club down here, and yeah, I really miss that.
Yeah.
And I have a great TRX class as well, which I really miss the camaraderie, not just the exercise, but the camaraderie as well.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said for those group activities, and especially if it's something that you're regularly participating in, that's hard to no longer see those people every day, and you've built bonds with those, you know, with those folks.
Exactly. But I think probably the thing that I've missed most of all is the spring skiing, you know.
Oh.
So we were there the day that they shut down, you know, Epic, they announced that they were shutting their resort and their resorts, and then everybody kind of followed suit after that, and just one by one, all the resorts were shut.
Yeah. I would imagine though right now, I mean, given the lack of rain that we've had, that spring skiing would probably be a little
well,
not so great this season.
Interestingly enough, though, we had this amazing dump right at the time that
you guys were there,
and everybody was like, we just had the best day, and now they're closing it. And
oh, that's hard.
Everybody was a little agitated, but we understand why they have to do it, and there will be next year.
Yes.
I hope.
That's the goal, right? That's the goal. What side of Tahoe do you frequent?
You know, we've done it all. When the kids were little, we put them on skis when they were really little, and they started out at North Star. That's a perfect, you know.
That's where I learned how to ski.
Okay, perfect, yes. It is, and I have great memories there. I've even said to the boys that I want my ashes spread on this.
Nice.
I wanted on this particular run where I remember, I think, you know, they finally, you know, they'd had enough lessons and they'd been on ski team, and we were skiing in powder in the glades and just hooting and hollering and having a great time. And I was like, we've arrived. We finally, because what it takes to get little children to ski, and I'm cold, I'm tired, I want some hot chocolate, you know, like, on, let's, you know, and it takes a lot to get them up and get them out early and what have you. And so that's where I want my ashes spread.
Nice.
On the backside.
Nice.
So yeah, they started out at North Star, but then, you know, after a while the boys were like, it's Flat Star, and so then we went to Heavenly and Kirkwood. But the most recent, the last 5 or 6 years, they were on the free ride team at Sugar Bowl, and we love Sugar Bowl. Yeah,
Sugar Bowl's really nice.
Yes.
I like that side of Tahoe. I've spent many years vacationing there in the summertime over by Sunnyside, and so it has a very, very fond place in my heart.
Yeah, I think it is lovely to have those memories, and we do it with some other families. So we do a ski lease with 2 or 3 other families, and
nice.
You know, great memories. Obviously, they're great skiers, but the other memories are of the après ski and the camaraderie and just the fun, you know, the big meals that we cook afterwards, the chit-chatting and the laughing, and just, you know, being on the conversations we have on the chairlift as well. You know, it's sometimes that's a great time to get my kids to open up as well. So
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and in fact, one of my sons was like, you know, that's been so good for me. I hope that I get to do that with my family as well. So yeah,
those are important memories and opportunities to create and watch them carry on.
Did your family ski? Did you all ski together? That was
so we used to go, the big family ski trip was President's Day weekend. Mm-hmm. And so my cousins would come up from the South Bay, and we would like pile into my grandfather's station wagon and roll up to Tahoe for a long weekend. And most of our skiing was done at North Star. A few times we did go into South Lake, but most of the time it was at North Star. And so we would rent a big house there, and you know, it was all of those things. It was, you know, cooking meals together, and you know, going up the gondola and meeting, you know, the middle of the mountain and have lunch. And then in the summertime, my mom was an educator, and a teacher friend of hers had a house up above Tahoe City, roughly. And so we were able to rent that. And so I spent both winter and summer in Tahoe at any given time, you know, for most of my childhood. And so it's great memories. And it's still like a goal of mine to try and get to Tahoe at least once a year. It's just a really, you know, kind of calming place for me, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely my happy place too.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not happy anywhere.
Yeah, so now I'm kind of going too, but you know, it's nice to have a little change of scenery for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Well, yeah, it's been great to chat with you. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm excited to we're gonna make some cocktails here soon in a couple days, and so I'm looking forward to doing that.
Me too, and thank you so much, Lindsay. It's been great
Thanks,
fun.
Ginny. I'll talk to you real soon.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.